Here's a compilation of my strength training tips to kickstart your gains in 2026.
So one thing you'll notice here is I'm using the hip circle when I do the barbell hip thrusts. What this is gonna do, it's gonna allow you to get more engagement of the glute medius, which is a super important muscle. A lot of times it's weak and it plays a key role in stabilizing the knee, covering all the bases of getting the glutes fired up right at the beginning of the workout. So don't be afraid with the hip thrust at the beginning to really push the weight, push the intensity. Once it starts burning like crazy, go for 5 more reps. And maybe you take a breath, a second or two, push out 1 more rep and just keep going until you can't take that burn anymore and you want to crawl out of the machine. That's when you know you did the set right. Separating line is how much of that burn you can handle. You may get sick. You need to have good cardiovascular endurance to get the most out of your leg workouts, especially when you're training in this high rep space. When you do the movement, you're gonna engage your lats. So what you're gonna do is pull the bar close to your body, keep your lats engaged, and then you start the hinge movement, okay? Bending forward at the waist. Slight bend in the knees, you're basically dragging that bar down your legs, keeping the lats engaged, just like that. Now, if you can't keep your lats engaged like that throughout the entire movement, you're probably going a little bit too heavy. So back off the weight, really focus on keeping that form nice and tight, those lats engaged. Further down on the platform, the more knee flexion you're gonna get, which is gonna put more emphasis on the quad. When you bring your feet towards the middle of the platform, you get a nice balance of quad and glute activation. And then when you bring your feet all the way up to the top, you're putting more emphasis on your glutes. Get a lot of questions with the Bulgarian split squat on form. One thing I like to do with the form is always on a step. So I like to really increase that range of motion, get more knee flexion so you're getting nice activation, nice development out of your quads. Then what I do with my foot positioning, I step up on the bench. I'm trying to make sure that my knee is tracking just slightly over my toe, and then I'm sinking into a nice groove here with where my back leg is. So it feels nice here. I'm getting a stretch on the quad at the bottom of the movement, and then I'm coming up. Bending the upper body forward just slightly. If you were to bend further forward, then you're gonna be targeting more glute. I like to kind of hit it in the middle where I'm just bent slightly forward here, just like that. Another thing to note here too is when you're coming up from the bottom of the movement, push your knee out slightly. This is gonna activate the glute medius and is gonna help you stabilize better. Now, as far as the foot pad is concerned, if you have an adjustable one, what I like to do is I set this one so it's just below my knee. That seems to be the right spot when doing this with the step there. I'm a big fan of including these at the end of the workout. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's insane. Why would you put the split squat at the end of the workout? It's one of the hardest, most challenging exercises. Why I like to put it at the end of the workout is because by that point, your legs should be cooked. You're gonna really recognize some imbalances in strength that now by doing the split squat at the end, you're gonna be able to attack those imbalances. It also allows you to use lighter weight with the split squat. Focusing more on the form while your legs are really fatigued is gonna really improve the benefit from the exercise even more. I like to do more of a clean bulk. I'm not trying to gain a ton of weight, I'm trying to gain quality weight. If I'm seeing my weight move about a pound a week, that's a good rate. If I'm seeing more than that, packing on body fat, and it's kind of counterproductive. And then on leg days where I burn the most calories, I plan a cheat day or cheat meal on leg day, just to make up for that crazy calorie burn that happens on that day. I like to add in the additional calories, primarily through carbs, a little bit of fats as well. And basically, since I'm consistent with my eating and I eat the same meals every day, I have a baseline of like, okay, if I eat X, Y, and Z, this amount of calories, these macros, I'm maintaining my weight. So then I know, okay, let me up the carbs by 100 grams a day. Let me add a little bit more fat, and then that gets me to that 500 calorie surplus. I think people, when they think of traditional bulking, they throw in like dirty foods and dirty cheat meals to like make up for the bulk of the calories. This is like, I eat clean and I add more clean food to the diet. And then cheat meals, maybe, 2 cheat meals a week. Listen, there's many ways to bulk. If you want to just pack on a ton of weight, gain as much weight as possible, you're gonna have a hard time really understanding how much muscle you've actually gained versus taking a clean bulking approach where you're gaining less, but you're putting on quality muscle and limiting the body fat that you're gaining. It may take a little bit longer, but It's cleaner, you're leaner, you're gonna look better, you're gonna feel better. I actually utilize the dips to target my upper chest as well as my lower chest. What I like to do with the form is lean further forward, pinch the shoulder blades together, and then I pause at the bottom of the movement until I feel a stretch across those upper pec fibers that run from the clavicle. And then I drive up from that position, flexing the chest as hard as I can at the top. For triceps, yes, your triceps are working, but I think there are better exercises that are going to target and isolate the triceps. If I were to incorporate dips for triceps, I would utilize bench dip, do it at the end of the workout, focus on controlling the movement, controlling the tempo, flexing the triceps as hard as you can at the top, and then going for high reps, 15 or 20 reps here. You don't need to put plates on your lap. Focus on the pump, focus on really squeezing the triceps as hard as you can. There'll be different levels here. Obviously, you put your feet up on a bench, you're adding more weight to them. So depending upon your level of strength, you can do it with your feet on the ground, or you can put your feet up on a bench. If your elbows bother you with your arms close together, you can go out a little bit wider. It's actually going to help to target a little bit more of that outer portion of the tricep.
The most important aspects of contest prep is how well you can manage stress so that your body gets into that peak shape as easy as possible. It's not fighting you getting into it, because once your stress levels are too high, your cortisol's too high, you're not going to be getting lean. Your body's going to fight you getting lean and getting down to that level of conditioning you need to get. So anyone who's trying to gain muscle, I mean, rest is paramount, keeping your stress low is paramount. So just having the regimented, like I have a set time where I go to bed every night, I have a set time where I wake up every morning. So just keeping all of those variables the same, so you know, okay, you're getting the proper rest to recover properly. You're hitting your meals, your nutrition. You're trying to limit stress and negativity in your life. You know, all those things are super important. For me, looking in this as I'm now getting back into competing and plan to compete more, is that just embracing the journey. It's actually about the journey of the contest prep, who is there supporting you. It was such a rewarding experience for me when I got 5th place, to see Danny in the audience, so excited, to see my friend, my training partner, Ferland, in the audience, so excited. Like, it's just about the journey. Like, the competition is the goal. It's like the bow on the present, but just really trying to enjoy the process of the prep itself. Because the reality is, when you're competing, you're spending more time prepping than you are actually competing. The competition is a day or two. So just really wanted to get to a space where I could enjoy the prep, also enjoy the work, and enjoy I love the process, the artistic process of building and sculpting the physique. So to be able to be present in that and enjoy it all the way through was very rewarding. I think that's the whole key here, is that you say, okay, I did X, Y, and Z leading up to this, and it yielded this result. So now, what do I need to change? I'm not going to keep doing what I was doing. I need to change and evolve that. So I look at the entire picture, even on the nutrition side too. This contest prep, I went to 6 whole food meals and 1 shake a day, and it was a lot of protein. I mean, more protein than I've had in ages. Probably close to 450 grams of protein a day, somewhere in that ballpark space. So recognizing, and I was eating every 2 hours, my body was processing the protein. So recognizing my body actually does better on very high protein without any adverse side effects. So knowing I can push the protein portions a little bit higher than I was doing last year to focus on trying to gain muscle, and then obviously going into the prep.
I think a lot of it too, when it comes to muscle building and hypertrophy training, is like understanding that form and the technique are super important. And it's not a matter of just lifting as much as you can and moving a weight from point A to point B. It's the quality of the contractions, the range of motion, focusing on those details, things like time under tension, your rest periods between sets. Understanding all those different variables that add up that are going to help you gain muscle versus just, I'm going to lift as heavy as possible. Sure, you can lift as heavy as possible and you're going to gain some muscle, but you are going to hit a point where you plateau, because it's more of a response to the nervous system, and you're training with heavy weight, low reps. To always increase the weight when you're doing a particular exercise. This exercise right here, I kept it at 25 pounds for the entire 3 sets, and I was focusing on the technique, really trying to get that connection with the muscle, fatigue the muscle within a certain rep range. So for me, taxing the muscle is crucial. I don't necessarily care how much weight I'm lifting. It's really about how much fatigue, how much time under tension I'm putting that muscle through within that set, how far I'm taking my level of intensity intensity within that set to really get the most out of that exercise, push the muscle to failure or as close to failure as possible to really maximize all the metabolic stress that's going to lead to muscle growth. The pump is going to guide the direction of muscle growth is going to happen, right? So when I'm doing a workout, I'm trying to get a pump that achieves a certain look. When I've achieved that look, I know, okay, I'm now trending in the right direction to the muscle growth that I desire, the look that I'm trying to achieve. If a particular muscle group isn't getting pumped up in the area you're trying to work, you're not effectively working that muscle group in that area. That's where you need to pivot your workout, find those exercises that you do feel that area working, start layering more of those into your workouts. I think it's easy sometimes in training back where you continually just load up weight. You're like, oh, I can do bent over rows at 315. But you're probably lifting more with the arms and actually not getting as much out of your back. So that's where pulling back on the weight a little bit so you can really control that movement, feel those contractions, feel your lats working, you're gonna get more out of your back training that way. Here are 2 tips I use to target muscle growth for the flat bench press. One major key here with the form is dropping the elbows down. A lot of people do their bench presses, they bring their elbows all the way up. It's putting your shoulders in a compromising position. So you drop your elbows down, roughly at about a 45-degree angle, and you're driving up from there, okay? The other piece I like to do here is pinch your shoulder blades together, come down nice and slow and control, hold it at the bottom for about a second, or just until you feel a little bit of stretch across the chest, and then drive up. I also like to keep that 45-degree angle with my hands at the top, so the dumbbells are going to be angled at the top as well. And that really allows you to get more of that squeeze out of your chest at the top of the movement. And also not rounding too much forward. Keeping your chest up, your shoulder blades back is going to allow you to get more activation out of your chest. A lot of times when you see people have pec tears, it's because they're bench pressing with their elbows up too high. So again, drop the elbows down. It's going to put the shoulders in a much more natural position to then press the movement effectively and limit that impact on the shoulders. As far as body positioning is concerned with the bench press for gaining muscle, what I like to do is make sure I'm really anchoring my feet into the ground. I do engage the glutes. I don't over excessively arch though, like a power lifter would do, or someone who's trying to lift max weight, because that's not the goal here. The goal is getting maximal activation out of the chest. So I find that just by anchoring, contracting the glutes, keeping that base of support allows me to get more activation out of the chest. So to gain muscle, you want to train intensely, but that does not necessarily mean you need to train as heavy as possible. A lot of times people get into a space where they're letting the weight dictate their intensity. I like to do it the other way around, where I'm controlling the weight and I'm dictating the intensity I'm getting out of that weight. And that's what I found has really led to longevity, better muscle gains, limiting negative impact on the joints. That's really what I found has been a key for me to be more successful long term. On flat bench, I really like the way the dumbbells feel. They do add a layer of instability, which is going to, again, activate more muscles in the shoulders, more of the stabilizing muscles. You're going to get more out of that movement. Also, there is inherently a lower risk of injury when you're doing a dumbbell versus traditional barbell movement, in my opinion. I think it's a matter of biceps. Like, I look at it a few different ways, but what I'm trying to do is layer in a traditional bicep curl movement. So any kind of just regular standing curl. Then I like to add in a movement that is creating a stretch to the biceps. And then I also like to focus on a movement that emphasis is on that peak contraction, a really strong peak contraction. And then lastly, always throw in some sort of hammer curl, reverse curl. Typically for the first exercise, I like to go a little higher reps, 15 to 20 reps. Get a lot of blood in the muscle right at the beginning of the biceps workout. You have some blood in the muscles from training back. Now I'm just trying to flush as much blood as I can into the beginning of the workout. And then that pump should be really intense through the rest of the bicep workout. First set's gonna be like 70% intensity, then maybe I'm going like 85 for that second set, and then that third set I'm hitting pretty close to 100%. Yeah, I like to use the cables in the beginning, focusing on just the nice smooth resistance, focusing on that peak contraction here. I think it's something a lot of people overlook. The more you can squeeze the biceps, create that connection, the better you're going to be able to develop the bicep. That's really important. Jerk curl is a great movement for emphasizing the stretch, emphasizing the negative, that eccentric portion of the movement. You do not get a strong peak contraction at the top just because of the angle, but as you lower that weight down, you're getting more and more tension on the biceps. That's why I like to utilize it here, just emphasizing that negative
really focusing on that stretch. Yeah, on this particular movement, you don't want to go super heavy. You need to be careful on this movement. You don't want to overload the muscle too much. You're in a vulnerable position at the bottom of this movement. So I would say err on the side of caution with the weight and really just focus on controlling that negative. You don't have to always increase the weight when you're doing a particular exercise. So this exercise right here, I kept it at 25 pounds for the entire 3 sets. And I was focusing on the technique, really trying to get that connection with the muscle, fatigue the muscle within a certain rep range. Bicep training, really, it's all about isolation. So what I'm focusing here is, if you're gonna flex your wrist like this, you're gonna be getting your forearm involved. So I'm keeping more of a neutral wrist so that more of the tension is going onto the biceps, which is what the main focus is here. Concentration curl here, really the focus on this one is just a really strong peak contraction. Exercise you feel the strongest peak contraction with are gonna allow you to get more of that biceps peak. Squeezing and flexing as hard as you can at the top of that movement. Spider curls are another example of an exercise like that. I feel standing concentration curls feel the strongest contraction with them. So it's something I like to layer into my routine pretty often. And then what I'm doing with each rep is flexing as hard as I can until I feel the entire biceps contract, and then I'm releasing the rep. So that's the whole thing, is I'm really digging in there. I'm searching for that peak contraction where I'm feeling the entire muscle contract as strong as possible. Reverse curls, hammer curls, we're really trying to focus on brachioradialis. And then also it's gonna hit a little bit of the brachialis, which is the muscle here between the biceps and the triceps. Of course, you're also working your biceps as well, but just a nice movement to incorporate, get some forearm out of it. Just really balances out the forearm. It's gonna help to create more shape and width. I think it's a movement that's overlooked by a lot of people. They just do all the curls. They don't focus on hammer curls and reverse curls. And I think that's why you see maybe some people don't quite have the forearm development that matches the biceps. It's all about flow and symmetry. So you're gonna want forearm development to match the biceps, shoulder development, all of it should flow together. So training partner here and there. I would train with my wife occasionally. And then Ferlin and I started training together.
Is it 2 years?
Yeah, a year and a half ago maybe. Man, it just makes a big difference in how much you can push. Really, those extra couple reps. When I train by myself, I can't force out those extra reps. I can do things like rest, pause, and stuff like that, but having someone there to spot you and push you, I mean, it makes a big difference.
I say like little motivational things.
Yeah.
Scream, I'm like, hey, think about how you want to look on the stage.
Yeah.
Think about when you do that back shot, they're going to want to see it over and over again.
And those little things too, those are like little mental things, that because a lot of this is mental too, right? And pushing yourself and how hard you can push yourself. So if you have a little bit more of that mental, that extra motivation to push through, like, it's gonna make a difference. 13 years old, so you're talking almost, 30 years of weight training experience. Like, I need a lot of stimulus in my muscle to make it grow. So those extra couple of forced reps you can get with a partner, just huge difference. I think it's important you have a training partner, and they know your goals, obviously, and they're invested in the process. They're invested in your betterment and your improvement. They know where to pop in to push you, to help you force out some extra repetitions, or give you a little extra motivation during a set with something they say, or keep you more focused on the goal and what you're trying to achieve. I think it's overlooked, and it's huge from the mental side of it as well. In bodybuilding competitions, everybody's physique, everyone's body's different. So it's really a matter of going through the experience of competing, of peaking for a contest, understand how your body responds, and to gain those learnings of what you did and how your body reacted to it. So for all the competitions, I keep a prep log. I write down everything I eat, times, the whole nine, and I have that to reference back to when I go forward through the next contest to say, okay, last contest we ate X amount of meals. The day before the contest, this was the result, and now I can tweak and adjust off of that, knowing that I learned, oh, my body responds really well to this type of food when I carb up, or this, and you really fine tune and continue to evolve. In the bodybuilding contest space too, I think a lot of it is take your progress pictures, you're tracking along, you see what you look like in the mirror, you just have a lot of input of different looks of your physique, different lighting, you look different, so it's like really what you're trying to get to is, okay, then you see what you look like on stage, and you're like, oh, okay, that's how the progress translated. So then you can start to put the dots together of, okay, I look like this in this lighting in the gym, I look like this in my progress pictures, okay, and then you look like this on stage. So no matter what you're trying to achieve in fitness, what your goals are, the support system is huge. You need that person in there who obviously is going to be your cheerleader, but also help to guide you and help to give you feedback that maybe you're not seeing, and that's going to really help to take you to the next level, having that person who's just as deeply invested in your goals as you are yourself. Longevity and injury prevention, really, or if you are recovering from injuries or surgeries, the warm-up for shoulders is crucial, because you're going to want to make sure you're warming up the rotator cuff, and you need to make sure you're warming up the rhomboids. All right, so what I'm doing here, reverse fly,
Once I hit failure, full range of motion, then what I'm doing is turning into more of a variation of a row. So I'm keeping it in tight, and I'm just literally doing the row here, focusing on that peak contraction of the rear delts. Something that I think the rear delts are kind of hard to feel contract fully, and this movement really, you feel it, flushes a lot of blood into that area, so highly recommend you try it. I think there's a lot of nuance involved in training shoulders, so you don't want to go extremely heavy because then your traps are going to take over. For the most part, with a lot of the shoulder stuff, once your upper traps start taking over, you're not targeting the muscles you're looking to target. So here is finding a weight that feels appropriate, where I can pull full range of motion, squeeze those shoulder blades together. That's really important. I think it's a piece that most people overlook. So the arms are up here. I'm just making sure I'm not shrugging my shoulders up to do the movement, because then the upper traps are going to be really engaged. So keeping those upper traps more relaxed, that's what I'm thinking of mentally when I'm doing the movement. You see a lot of people do movements where they're hunched over like this, they'll put their head forward. You're just affecting the curvature of your spine in a manner in which you're going to be hitting different muscle groups. So everything I try to do, keeping the posture very neutral, never moving my neck too far forward, too far back. Science will say, okay, you put your hands here, it should target this area. Well, if you're not feeling it target that area, try out different hand positions. This one I go high because I actually really feel my rear delts at that. But if someone's trying the movement and they're not feeling their rear delts with their hands up high, experiment. Find the position where you feel the movement and you feel the muscles contract, and that's going to be the best position for you. I think a lot of people focus just on isolating, like, oh, we're working rear delts here. That's your only focus. I think this is a valuable movement right here to isolate that entire chain. So you're activating the rear delts, definitely your rhomboids, lower and mid traps. And everything we do nowadays, we're internally rotated. So you really want to maybe overemphasize working that whole portion of the upper back, because for the most part, they're probably overstretched and a little weak. Here's a pro tip to add to your next workout here. You're doing the reverse flies. Once you hit failure, full range of motion, go into your partials. Once you can no longer do partials, try to just bring the weight out as far as you can. Hold that contraction there. Just fight it until you can't hold it any longer. 10 to 15 seconds. It's going to really light up your rear delts. What I like to do on the machines is kind of a transition movement. So I like to just really control the movement, slow and controlled, slight peak contraction hold at the top, and then I do higher reps here. So I'm trying to get as much blood into the muscle right at the beginning of the workout. And then when I go into those movements like dumbbell side laterals, my shoulders just feel much better, and I get a better mind muscle connection that way. One thing with the form on this machine here, you'll notice, is I'm not leaning all the way forward against the pad. I actually lean back a little bit, so that allows me to bring my arms forward just slightly. Just puts the shoulder joint in a more optimal position, feels much better on my shoulders that way. Because of the resistance profile of the movement, hold that peak contraction at the top. That's where all that resistance really hits, and you're gonna feel a really strong contraction of the side delt. Same thing, because of gravity, you're probably getting resistance from top of the movement to about here or so on the side delt. So really important, especially if you have a hard time connecting and feeling your side delts contract. Hold that peak contraction 1 to 2 seconds on these. Just trying to up the intensity of the movement. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm alternating reps, starting at 1 on each side, going up to doing 4 on each side. And then after that, then I'll go into 5 reps, both arms at the same time, to really push the muscle to failure. And I found that's really helped to round out my delts. You see it a lot where people train too heavy. You're lifting too heavy on the side lateral, it's gonna be all traps. You're actually not really putting much tension on the side delt. So lighten up that weight. I mean, I know when I was younger, I just thought lifting as heavy as possible was the way. I would wing around 50-pound dumbbells on the side laterals. 30s and 40s is switch the front raises to a scaption raise. So the front raise, traditional front raise is here. Scaption raise is gonna be more here, more in the scapular plane. So it just puts the head of the humerus and the shoulder in a better alignment. So you're not gonna get, like I spoke about earlier, that impingement in the shoulder. Just feels much better, and I feel a much stronger contraction of the front delt when I do it that way. Holding it at the top till I feel that contraction, and then controlling on the way down. As I've gotten older, it's really about like weighing the risk versus reward of
lifting heavy, pushing through pain with shoulders. I find it's just best to err on the side of caution. If your shoulders aren't feeling right, if you're feeling a pinch in your shoulders, if you're feeling something grind or clicking in your shoulders, try to change the position of the movement to find where you don't feel any discomfort, or if you can't, just move on to a different movement. It's just really not worth it. The one big key with longevity is just staying consistent with the training, and if you're gonna put yourself in a position where you're injured and you're not gonna be able to train, you're just gonna be setting yourself back. Training shoulders, put the shoulder presses at the end of the workout. You've pre-fatigued all the different heads of the shoulders, so you don't need to lift as heavy. It's just gonna limit the impact on the joints. But quite honestly, some days my left shoulder acts up on me from time to time, and if it doesn't feel right, I just scrap doing the exercise. And I think you need to be okay with saying, okay, this exercise doesn't feel right today, you're gonna drop it from the workout, because what is the risk versus reward is not there. You're not gonna be, you're pushing through actual pain or discomfort that is gonna potentially lead to your shoulder flaring up more inflammation in the shoulder. So I think it's, as you get older, like it's okay dropping exercises that don't feel good. And maybe next week it feels fine, you do some body work or whatever it may be and the shoulder feels better. So last exercise for the leg workout is gonna be a RDL using the belt squat machine. Couple tips on the form here. First and foremost, slow down the pace of your reps. Control the negative 3 to 4 seconds down, making sure you're keeping your core engaged, keep your core tight, keeping your back in a neutral position, not over rounding or overextending. Go down, slight bend in the knees, pause a little bit at the bottom until you feel a stretch in the hamstrings, and then drive up, driving the hips forward, contract the glutes. Thing two with the form here is you're gonna wanna externally rotate your knees a little bit. You're gonna get more engagement out of the glutes, gonna create more stability for your lower back. And then the last technique here is feet flat, driving those big toes into the ground. Do not lift your toes off. Keep your toes planted into the platform when you do this movement, especially on the way back up. Keeping your feet flat while digging your big toe in is actually gonna get you more glute engagement out of this exercise.